Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. This is part 2 of the rod bearing pouring for the 15 horsepower Patent. You see I've started getting this ready. I realized I didn't mention it in the first video, but you're going to have to put some damming right over here because this is where the oil goes in for from the dripper here, and it's going to go into that bearing, and there's grooves, oil grooves cut in the bearing, and if you don't seal that up, molten Babbitt, which you're going to be pouring down here, molten Babbitt's going to go into those oil grooves as well, and it wouldn't be the end of the world, but you'd have to pick it out again, out of this good bearing. So I packed that up really tight as I could with some damming material. I am using this stuff that I bought from Roto Metals. It seems like a pretty decent stuff. It's kind of clay-like, and it's got little, probably fiberglass fibers in it. And now I'm fitting my shims in here. See, I cut a relief for the Babbitt to flow through. I didn't have that in the previous video. I forgot about it. And I also tried to pack some damming material into the corners there. And I did the same with the bottom side. So now I'm ready to soot this with my acetylene torch. And I'm going to clean off just the edges here because the Babbitt's not going to touch it, but I do want the damming material to stick to it very well. So I'm going to soot everything, just clean the sides here and clean the edges, and I'll slide in the other bearing half. Okay, so I have the crankshaft all sooted with acetylene soot, and I carefully wiped off the areas over here and up there, so the damming will stick nicely because the soot definitely makes it challenging for that damming to stick. And I'm going to slide on the other bearing cap half, but before I do that I'm just going to carefully bring these bolts forward, make sure I get the top side of the cap going up. Of course, if you're pouring a new bearing, I suppose it doesn't matter too much, but slide it on carefully. Make sure not to scuff away any of the carbon blacking. Push the bolts through the rest of the way. There we go. Now I will drop the connecting rod down, put my shim in place, now that these threaded rods are run through and the nuts are on finger tight, I'm going to finish tightening the nuts with a wrench and pull this gap up tight. The piston has a fair amount of drag with the rings, and also there's some drag here on the crosshead because I think the bearings are a little bit tight. So that will help keep everything forward. You see I've removed the 4x4 and the hydraulic jack just temporarily so I can get in here with a wrench, tighten everything up, and once that's done I'll dam everything, and then once everything is dammed I'll put the jack back in place just to hold everything nice and firm. Also, I have a C-clamp between the flywheel rim and the frame here to keep the flywheel from rotating around, which is important. Now we're ready to dam up all of the joints, but before that I just wanted to mention that this bearing cap, of course, has some play between the crankshaft throws here. So try to make this gap and that gap even. Then once it is, it's ready for some damming. What I'm going to do is stuff some damming compound in that gap there, and then I'm going to follow it with this leather string here. And you see it's just about the right thickness, so I'll wrap that around and pull it tight, and that'll help keep the damming in, and then I'll put another layer or several layers, nice thick globs of damming over that just for extra insurance. And then lastly I'll make a little well over here to pour into. So I'm partway done with the first step of damming. See, first I just smushed the damming in as hard as I could by hand. Sometimes I use a screwdriver to kind of help pack it in there. And then I just use a screwdriver to kind of scrape off the excess, and there's the result. Just a little bit of damming squished into the gap there. I try not to push too much down in there because you want a little bit of Babbitt on the side to prevent side play. But this damming, because of the fibers in it, it doesn't really extrude and mush too well. So I don't think it's really jamming too far down in there, so I think we'll be okay. Okay, so it's all tied up. I used 2 wraps of the lacing just for the hell of it. This is just the perfect size. Ties real nice. It's nice and thin, but it's wide too, so it sits nice and flat. And also, these mirrors are extremely handy, and you almost have to have it to do the underside here to make sure you dam everything completely and make sure the string is laying in the groove properly. And lastly, yes, I did dam the backside even though there's Babbitt there, and I'm not going to be pouring that back bearing. I still just wanted to make sure there was no leak paths out, so I dammed everything. Here we are, ready to go. Everything is dammed up, and I made sure everything on the underside is extremely well dammed with my mirror. Made a little funnel for the inlet there, and we're ready to go. And I'll preheat this. I'll start preheating this first because the Babbitt really doesn't take too long to melt. And the crankshaft is going to have to take a lot of heat because it's such a big mass, but I'm not concerned about this being hot as much as I am concerned about this being hot, because I really want the Babbitt to form and bond as much as it can to the cap. I really don't care about the crankshaft too much. It just has to be warm enough so that the Babbitt will flow and not freeze once it hits it. So I'll just have to hit this side and the other side with my oxyacetylene torch, and then carefully heat this up, trying not to put the flame on the damming too much, just so you don't compromise it with the flame of the torch. There you go. Who needs to go skydiving for an adrenaline rush if you just pour a Babbitt? Okay, see, I got plenty of Babbitt left over this time. I'm just going to pour this into some muffin tins. So, one thing, I don't know if it made any difference, I poured kind of from one side of that little funnel I made. The idea being the Babbitt can go in one side and the air can escape from the other side. Because that could be dangerous if as you're filling, if your inlet is too small, only Babbitt can go in, but the air that's in there has to go out. And not only does it have to go out, but the air is heating up and expanding so it can blow Babbitt out. So that's potentially unsafe, just about as unsafe as having some liquid water in there or oil that can also create a rapidly expanding pocket of gas. But anyway, it went pretty well. I'm going to walk away from this for a while, let it cool down, and then take apart all my hard work setting this up, and see how it came out. Now, one thing I was a little disappointed about is this damming. When it got hot, it got very soft, and then there was this piece just fell right off the bottom. Luckily, this piece kind of bridged this gap right here between the two bearing halves, so it wasn't a real critical piece. But still, I am not very impressed with that, so It's still decent damming. I think it's definitely better than the plumber's putty, but I think I'm still on the quest for a better damming material. Yes, I gotta say, this stuff is coming off really easily. So, I think what really saved me was the leather string that I wrapped around. That was an excellent suggestion by somebody on the smokestack forum. I forget who it is, but thank you, whoever it may have been, for suggesting that, because I feel really confident about this being a good pour. I see the back cap is undamaged. I had the damming there so Babbitt didn't flow into the oil grooves. Alright, lift that up out of the way. Just put a wrench across the crosshead guides there to hold the connecting rod up. Alright, drum roll. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Look at that. Whew. Holy shit. That came out absolutely beautiful. Not bragging or anything. Or hey, it's not bragging if you've done it, right? Let's take a look at this on the bench. So I am very happy with how this came out. There's no voids or anything. And you can see the damming that I pushed in here. It went in about halfway, which is, I don't know, I guess that's just about right. So yeah, there's a little bit of a void there and a void there. This Babbitt probably could have stood to come out a little bit more to prevent side-to-side motion, but you know what, this is absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. I am definitely no expert, but I think this is perfect. Over here up top, this is where the Babbitt poured in. You can see there's two little dimples, and these dimples, there's two here and there's two on the other side. There were drill marks into the bronze, and they were used for retention to hold the Babbitt in place. Oh, by the way, you already know this, I guess, because I haven't shown you how to do it, but some people talk about tinning before pouring. Whatever they want the Babbitt to stick to, they'll tin it. They'll flux it and tin it with either solder or a little piece of Babbitt. And you know what? Again, I'm no expert, but I really don't think that's necessary, especially with something like this. It's such a complicated, or not really a complicated shape, but it's curved and it's got the drill holes. It's retained. It's not going to go anywhere. And even if it does want to move a little bit, when it's all clamped together with the shims in place, it's not going to want to move. So I really don't think tinning is necessary, at least in my limited experience so far. But anyway, there were those little dimples here, and I guess that's just because the Babbitt started getting kind of cool up top here and it shrunk in. You can't see it down the bottom, I guess because the weight of the Babbitt kept them full, but up top there wasn't as much pressure from the molten Babbitt, so they shrunk a little bit. But that's not a problem at all, because I'm going to be cutting oil grooves here anyway. So again, the common saying, you hear everybody say this, oh, a little hole, a little pit mark, that's not a problem, that's just a place for oil to go. So that's what those are going to be for. So just like the crosshead, the next step is just to take off any high spots, take off all this junk here. There's some stuff sticking up over there. Shave that off. Cut some oil grooves, and clean it up. Shim it. Put it on the crankshaft and spin it around. See how it works. See if there's any high spots that need to be scraped. Because the crankshaft is probably a little bit egg-shaped or a little bit wonky shaped, so there might be a high spot that will need a little bit of loving. But that's that. So I'm very happy. I was concerned with this coming out well, just because it's a difficult pour, but I don't want this to come out kind of half-assed like the top bearings for the crosshead. And in that case, it didn't matter because they're pretty much just along for the ride. But this bearing gets the full load when the engine fires, and it gets the full load of force when the engine comes up on compression stroke. So I wanted this to be a very sound, strong bearing, no porous holes or pock marks or anything. And I'm very happy with how it came out. So hopefully this helps out some of you guys and gals out there restoring your own engines and pouring Babbitt. It's definitely just like welding or anything else. It's 90% preparation, and the other 10% is actually doing it. Because the pour itself takes 10 seconds and it's done and over with. But preparing to get it to this point is a lot of work, and you take your time, and this is what you're rewarded with. You don't have to take it all apart and do it again, because that would just be a total pain in the ass and a waste of a day. This project took me, I probably started at 9 or 10 o'clock, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon now, so 5 hours roughly. So you don't want to waste that time. We all have a shortage of free time. So thanks for watching, everybody. Once again, I hope this helps out some of you people out there. I'm sure it will. I hope it will. And good luck pouring your own Babbitt. Just take your time, prepare, and you'll have a good bearing, just like this one. So, thanks for watching, and as always, come on back for more. And this engine, I hope, will be running by the summer Zagray show. So if you live in Connecticut or nearby, make sure to come on by to the Zagray Farm Museum, and maybe you'll see this engine running in a couple months. Thanks for watching. Make sure to come on back for more.